the US and supported by European Union. They feel that WTO is not serving their interests anymore because they feel all the manufacturing has gone to China and developing countries have their trade have grown. They feel WTO in the current format is not going to help them. And that's why they want to disturb the basic architecture of the WTO.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Macro Decode. The 14th Ministerial Conference of the World Trade Organization just concluded in Cameroon without any breakthrough in contentious issues. The meeting happened at a time when the world is going through high levels of trade uncertainty, deepening divide between the developed and developing countries, and questions being raised on the relevance of WTO itself. To elaborate on the topics covered in the conference, discussions and outcomes, we have Ajay Srivastava, founder of Global Trade Research Initiative. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for inviting me.
So, the WTO conference was held at a very crucial time for the global trade. Can you tell me what were the major topics taken up during the conference?
Okay, custom duties should not be levied on the electronic transmissions. It was of top interest to the United States of America.
Great.
Other second in importance was the investment facilitation agreement. It was agreed by 120 countries, including China, and it was waiting for its incorporation or adoption in the WTO. Other topics were agriculture and fisheries subsidies, WTO reforms, TRIPS non-violation complaint, and 3-4 more topics were there. But what I listed, they are the most important topics where most time was devoted.
In agriculture, India has been pressing for MSP-based procurement and public stockholding for food security. And when it comes to fisheries, we were seeking protection for small-scale fishermen. How did the discussions on these topics go and what were the outcomes?
So agriculture, our concerns are very unique and they go back to the incorrect formulas of agreement on agriculture. For example, suppose government announces the MSP of say rupees 20 per kg for rice and the market price is 18 rupees per kg for rice. So subsidy should be ideally 20 minus 18, 2 rupees per kg. But no, the WTO AOA formula calculates subsidies based on the rice prices prevailing in 1986 to 1988.
Okay.
So that inflates the subsidies 7 to 8 times. And because of that, we are found to be crossing the subsidy limit at the WTO. Right now, we have a temporary reprieve from the WTO that came out from the Bali Ministerial in 2013. We are seeking some permanent solution for that, but it's not coming.
Okay.
So this was India's concern, but nothing happened on that. No deeper discussions even took place.
What about fisheries in that case?
Currently, the WTO members are focusing on the second phase of the fisheries subsidy agreement. It's called subsidies leading to overfishing and overcapacity. Many of the big economies like European Union or China, they have industrial scale fishing vessels and they go out into different continents. So they want that others don't develop their fleet. So the focus is on whosoever has developed 4 or 5 nations. They should retain whatever subsidy they are giving, but others should not work. So India says no, we are not in that space. Most of our fishermen, they are small fishermen. We have artisanal fisheries, and so we want 20 to 25 years transition time. But I think developed countries are sort of agreeing to give us time to 7 to 8 years. But everything remains inconclusive and open. So nothing is agreed on this also.
Okay. So India was the only country opposing the Investment Facilitation and Development Pact. While IFD aims at improving ease of doing business, what was India's objection on this? And what was the outcome of the discussions?
So India doesn't object to the contents of the IFD per se. India's opposition is to the fact that IFD is a plurilateral. Plurilateral are the agreements which are agreed upon not among all the WTO members, but some of the members.
Right.
So what happens is that if we allow IFD, then we have to allow many other plurilateral. That means today that will be weakening the WTO structure. How they initiates discussions on any topic after the consensus from all its members. The
Right.
moment we allow IFD to be incorporated, WTO will be a power game where developed countries will be introducing the subjects of their own interest in the WTO and will
Hmm.
be ignoring the subjects of interest to the WTO to the of interest. So far, it is not there. If we allow this, it will be basically changing the basic structure of the WTO. Because WTO is for all members. Even WTO members, they cover 98% of world trade,
Right.
almost everything. So if some members they feel something is in their interest, they can go out of the WTO. Nothing stops them.
So I think this has been a new trend, the big change towards plurilateral agreements. And is this actually changing the very foundation of WTO as a multilateral agency?
So let's understand how the negotiating agenda of the WTO or earlier GATT was made. Some subjects of the interest of least developed countries, some subjects of interest of developing countries, some subjects of interest of developed countries, they were all put in the agenda. And
Okay.
then negotiations were happening. Developing countries were agreeing to some of the demands of the developed countries and vice versa. They were also doing this
Okay.
because of consensus principles. This was happening, but because everybody had to accommodate others' interest. The moment give we renounce this consensus principles, all these things will go. WTO becomes a playground only of the developed countries.
Right, right. Moratorium on customs duties on electronic transactions. Now, that was brought in 1998 when the digital economy was in a nascent stage. Today, the digital economy has grown huge, and it is like US, China, and EU account for almost 80% of it. India was one of the countries seeking an end to the moratorium. How did the discussions on this topic go, and what was the decision?
So since the beginning, all countries are agreeing that moratorium should be extended for 2 years, which means no country will be charging any custom tariffs on electronic transmission for 2 years.
Yes.
And they kept on reviving it for 26, 27 years continuously
Yes.
from the date of beginning. This time, US says nothing doing, you make it permanent. That means for future also, no country should charge the custom tariffs on electronic transmission. Now, seven of the US top tech firms, say from Google to Meta to Microsoft to
Yes.
Amazon, they corner the major chunk of electronic transmission across the world. They are the pure gainer. In this time, when US is charging high tariffs, above MFN tariffs on goods, what's the need for waiving the tariffs on digital transmission? And the way world is going today, digital economy is about $15 trillion. It's going to become $50 trillion as AI becomes dominant in the
Yeah.
next one or 1.5 decades. So most of the benefits will be accruing not to hundreds of US firms, but these 7, 8, 9, 10 of US firms. So why we should commit? Tomorrow, the tariff from normal routes will be coming down and government will need revenues. And for that, it has to resort to the digital. We are saying, okay, we agree for 2 years, 4 years, but we cannot agree permanently.
Yeah. And there has been some reports saying that, developing economies are losing around $10 billion annually on this customs duties on digital transactions.
I think
Uh,
it's much more because I want to look at the future, not at the current. The way AI is pervading in all the areas of spheres
yes.
and economies generally are shifting toward digital. Then why we unlock our future revenues?
Even in e-commerce discussions, I think this plurilateral kind of agreements popped up where we saw 66 members entering into a separate e-commerce agreement, and they extending the moratorium to 5 years.
Yes, yes.
So I think, even in those kind of crucial things, as well as we are seeing this kind of a divide in terms of coming into a consensus between the members.
So, if you recall how this US trade deal happened in the past 6, 7 months, European Union, Japan, South Korea, they agreed to one sided deal totally in favor of US. They surrendered so much. In this
Yeah.
digital also, the
Hmm.
only gainer is US, not the Europe, not the South Korea, not Japan, but everybody is supporting US because they are so scared of US. They are not talking about their own gains or losses. Just because US is saying they have to say yes. So we
Correct.
say okay, if you feel it's good for you, please go ahead, do it. Like right now, you have done
Hmm.
for investment facilitation for this e-commerce also. You do an FTA, implement amongst yourself, but don't bring it into the WTO because everybody is not going to gain from it.
Right. In case of moratorium on e-commerce, what was the outcome of all the discussions that had happened?
So US initially said that they want permanent freedom from custom duties. Countries like India reluctantly agreed from 2 years to 4 year stopping on charging of custom duties.
Yeah.
But US was pressing for 10 years. Then
Yeah.
Brazil put the spanner. Brazil says permanent or 10 years is too much and we are not doing that. So a lot of discussions were continuing. And then we have some information that Brazilian minister went back and then Brazil finally did not agree for these things and it was not adopted.
So even in other topic, which is on that non-violation complaints on intellectual property policies. Now that safeguard has also been expired. For the viewers, can you briefly explain what this safeguard is and how it has been protecting our pharma and health sector? Has there been any decision being made on extending the safeguard?
WTO has an agreement called Trade Related Intellectual Property Rights.
Yes.
Here, there's a provision for non-violation complaint. But non-violation complaint says even if you are not violating TRIPS provisions,
Yeah.
there may be a case that it may be affecting our future profits.
Yeah.
So this again was introduced in 1995 at the time of formation of WTO, and every country was extending that for 2 years. This time, nothing has been extended. So many companies, for example, in one case, Novartis, it challenged. They introduced, without introducing a new molecule, they wanted to revive the patent, existing patent. The case went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court did not agree with them. But now Novartis may again think of going to WTO.
Probably our generic pharma industry will face a big challenge, when if the patents are being renewed for some reason or the other.
Yes, I agree with that. It's not only pharmaceutical, it's for agriculture also. For example, seeds, patented seeds are there. You can take action against that also.
So overall, how to evaluate the goals achieved by the Ministerial Conference and how is this being taken forward?
Personally, I am happy because our expectations were very low from this ministerial.
Okay.
Because we have not sacrificed our core principle by opposing IFD, number one.
Right.
Number two, this e-commerce moratorium, we have not agreed because of Brazil's insistence on the permanent waiver of custom duties. So that's good. Other areas, no discussion is there, but no loss to India is there. So discussions will keep on happening.
Are these discussions going to be extended to Geneva, probably out of this particular ministerial conference?
EGWTO says they'll all be extended to Geneva, starting from where it ended at the Cameroon. And the date is not announced, but they'll be done soon.
How optimistic are you about WTO members arriving at fair, just decisions on these topics? Because for the past 1 year, we have been seeing the US imposing trade distorting tariffs on not just emerging nations but also the undeveloped economies. What should the WTO have done to restrict members from going ahead with such measures, and what has it done so far?
I think there should be a debate where countries should renounce their country identity, and everybody should come sit quietly and discuss about the objectives of WTO. WTO or its predecessor GATT, they have been very successful organizations. In 1950, global trade was $50 billion. Now it's $35 trillion, 600 times increase. Whereas global GDP in this time increased by 110 times only. So trade has increased 6 times compared to the growth of GDP.
Right.
And large part of it is attributed to the predictable trade rules set in motion by GATT or now the WTO. So WTO has contributed a lot, but right now developed countries, especially the US and supported by European Union, they feel that WTO is not serving their interests anymore because they feel all the manufacturing has gone to China and developing countries have their trade have grown much. They feel WTO in the current format is not going to help them. And that's why they want to disturb the basic architecture of the WTO.
Everybody is asking at this point of time. what is the relevance of WTO at its current form, where it can't do anything about the trade the uncertainties that we are seeing around? What is the relevance of this particular multilateral agency?
So, Sangeeta, WTO is highly relevant. 70% of the world trade is happening at those tariffs which have countries have committed the WTO. Except
Yeah.
for US, everybody is doing trade following the WTO rules. America had the great role in taking WTO in making WTO very effective. But now they are done with this. They feel that nobody should challenge them. WTO dispute settlement. Some smaller island nations they went to WTO against US and they obtained a verdict against the US. US did not like this, so they have almost destroyed WTO's appellate body. So that means WTO decision making tool is not active.
Yeah.
And because US and EU and others, they don't want consensus principle. They are introducing many new subjects which are of not of interest of everybody else. So right now they are talking about destroying the basic structure of the WTO. Let's see what happens.
Right. Well, what should India do in this kind of a situation where, the WTO itself is becoming, two separate blocks?
India has done well this time, even though India was lone contender, lone defender for not allowing IFDs incorporation. India has done well, but India should not be seen as standing alone. When 166 members are there, India should invest in coalition building so that it can pursue to retain the core principles of the WTO.
Thank you. It was really insightful having you in my show, sir. Thank you for coming in and joining.
Thanks, Sangeeta.